Hello guys, it's Jonathan here doing a Bottleman ranking video. This time, it's the God Cap ranking video. I said I was going to do this a while ago. And yeah, here we are. So, this is a weird one. So initially, I was going to only rank the mainline Bottlemen. Here's the problem. There's only 5. There's also 7 remakes, and then there's like the 2 weird custom build, not custom build Bottlemen. So I'm just going to count all of them. Counting all 14. It just seems like the easiest way to do this, so yeah. Now, unlike the DX video, I'm not going to give every single Bottleman the option to use barrels and magazines if they don't come with them. I feel like most things in God Cap do come with them, or at least something with them, if they're able to use them. I will take ports into account, so the potential to upgrade will be taken into account, but yeah, I'm not giving everything a magazine or barrel just for the sake of it, because again, I do feel like God Cap did cover that more than DX did, so I don't feel the need to. But yeah, with that said, let's just go ahead and get into the actual list and start off with just get all these out of the way, because this is going to be a very weird list, because I feel like a lot of things are kind of similar, but yeah. Anyway, hopefully it makes sense as it goes on, but I guess we'll have to see about that. Alright, number 14, the worst Bottleman in God Cap in my opinion, Bottle Sphinx G. I don't think Sphinx was a good Bottleman at all. Now, without the God Cap, this thing is a Deck V Tiger recolor. It has the drive strip though. That's neat. It has the head gimmick where you push down to get more tension. Cool. However, I am taking God Caps into account as well because, well, they come with them. It makes the most sense to use the caps that they come with. Again, you could argue other things and whatnot, and the potential this could have with other caps, but like, I feel like this one is clearly meant to be used with this cap, and yeah, I will be doing the other ones like this as well, so yeah. The curve cap is horrible. This Bottleman as is just kind of okay anyway, it's kind of middle of the road, but this cap in particular is really, really bad. It's actually made to be slightly smaller than an average cap. And this rubber ridge is very awkward. This thing, sometimes when it shoots, it just falls forward out of the thing. It just doesn't really go anywhere. It just misfires, which is kind of a huge issue. Also, the actual curving on this thing is very inconsistent. Sometimes I had it curve. It just doesn't curve. Like, that's more rare, but still. It usually curves anywhere from just a little bit to where it's like, it just feels like the cap's drifting almost. And other times it really curves. This thing's just inconsistent. I don't really like this this cap at all. And this Bottleman, again, it's not crazy. But yeah, my opinions on Deck V Tiger will be much more reflective of the Bottleman as a whole. But this one's just a recolor, and the whole gimmick of it was the curve cap, so I decided to count it as such. And yeah, Sphinx is genuinely a horrible Bottleman as is, because again, it just, this thing just doesn't shoot correctly, and that's kind of a little bit important, I would say. I kind of think you want your Bottleman to actually shoot. Alright, number 13, Cobalt Bottle G. This thing is, well, it's not bad like Sphinx, but it's just like the most painfully mid thing you could think of. It's a power type. Shoots decently strong. I guess you could try to use these to get a stronger shot. The horn can be used as a sight. Like, what else am I supposed to say? I mean, the cap also has a weight, which I actually don't mind these weights, because, aside from making the caps heavier, they also sort of add more, resistance, because if a cap is being shot, the hold parts could potentially flex in on the cap a little bit. You know, not much, but still it could, you know, push on the cap. And if you have this in here, the likelihood of the cap being, you know, flexed inward is less likely. So it should give a bit more tension. At least I got a slight bit, but still, it's something. And aside from that, yeah, it's a power type. That's all. I mean, I feel like everything else here is just a bit more interesting. This thing, yeah, it just feels outclassed. I feel like everything else here is just better. Assuming it's functional, that's why it's above Sphinx. But yeah, nothing here is really worse than this. This is just kind of a good, I guess, baseline Bottleman. Alright, number 12, it's Dragger G. Yeah, this one, it's just not that interesting. You could take out this attachment here, and it's just like Cobalt Bottle G, just a mid-power type. You have the same cap if you take it out of this ring. I mean, same deal. There you go. Doesn't have the sight, but yeah, I mean, you put this thing in, you get a big cap. Big caps are interesting. They are larger, and also, I mean, they can kind of act like a bowling ball, both in size, but also just the fact that, you know, they could hit a lot of, I mean, size, hit a lot of things. But also, again, you just have more mass, and kind of can help, but at the same time, I'd rather just shoot a regular cap because these have way less speed on them. Like a regular weighted cap on its own, I think, is far more destructive than a big cap. So, I mean, you could argue with that, but still, yeah, I mean, it's just kind of whatever. The whole big cap thing, yeah, it exists. Also, this thing reloads stupidly. It is a front loader, which kind of sucks. Also, Cola OG exists, and I mean, there's some additional things I could say about that, like problems, but I mean, it's not that big of a deal. I take that over this. So this thing kind of just feels outclassed, and like both modes, like yeah, I already said Cobalt Bottle G is kind of outclassed. So obviously, this thing in its normal mode is also outclassed, but also the big cap version's outclassed. But the reason it's above Cobalt Bottle G is because, well, it does at least have the option to do this, so it's like slightly better, but yeah, it's still not very good, honestly. Number 11, Welch Great G. This might be my first hot take here, actually. So, I don't think this is a very good Bottleman. So, a lot of people might say, well, what do you mean? It has, you know, the Arrow Sighter armor, which is a really good armor set, I will say. You have the CC Lan Quick Loader magazine, which is, you know, solid, and then also the Samet's magazine, one of the better God Cap, not the Samet's magazine, the Samet's core. Generally considered to be, well, at least the back half is considered to be like the best back half core. So why is this thing not good? It's because these things conflict with each other. So the Samet's core and the Arrow Sighter armor. Okay. Well, first up, you have the grip on the back here, which makes the kind of two-handed grip that you can use from this kind of meaningless, but it's still an option you have, I guess. The barrel itself doesn't do a whole lot, which is the mode it's kind of meant to be in, but like, it kind of just is a glorified sight, honestly. I feel like using this with the horn kind of helps you to line up your shot. The barrel itself doesn't do a whole lot, it's too spread out in my opinion. And if you want to use a stabilizer, well, actually, it will kind of cut off your grip, which is unfortunate. So, in my opinion, yeah, the Arrow Sighter armor and the Samet's core kind of conflict a little bit. Also, the Samet's core and the Quick Loader magazine also conflict because, well, this is kind of uncomfortable. It kind of moves us around. You have to kind of move these around like this or something, or like this or whatever, and then you're good. So it's a little bit awkward. Yeah, I don't know how to feel about that. And also, yeah, the Arrow Sighter armor and Quick Loader magazine, they kind of work well enough, I would say, together. But when you add in all three of these things together, you get the problems that I already said. But also, if you use the grip on this thing, it cuts off your ability to move these. They can only go to about here, which doesn't help with this. And the stabilizer makes it even more uncomfortable with these down here. It's a mess. This thing doesn't work well together. The best you could do is, like, move it like this, and then it's like, okay, now it's functional. But, like, the other problem is, okay, we figure out a way to solve the issues. You can only use one set of the Arrow Sighter, you know, attachments here in the barrel mode, which is, in my opinion, the worst mode, unless it's a power tech core where, you know, maybe they could add a little bit more tension to hold parts, but that's not the case here. So we figure out how to, you know, mitigate the issue. Problem. Now we have to take these off. And I feel like it is hard to take these off while holding this thing with one hand. You could do it, it's not like that big of a deal, but I feel like it throws off your aim, and it's also just more awkward than when you're holding the Bottleman itself down like up here or something to take it off. Holding it from the back, it's just less stable. I don't like that. Also, if you're holding it with a one-handed grip, that means to take off the other side, you either have to take your hand off the grip or switch hands. I don't like how this thing works at all. You also do get speed caps, which are fine, but yeah. I just feel like this Bottleman conflicts, like everything it wants to do just conflicts with something else, which I think makes it a bit weird. It's like very awkward to use, but also just makes it kind of not great. This one's definitely debatable. I can understand people saying it's better than I'm saying it is, but I just think everything about this Bottleman just works against itself, which is why I just don't think it should be very high up, and why I'm putting it so low. I debated putting it like 13th, but I'm like, that's probably too mean. again, you do have the magazine, you do get more, cap capacity, you have the one-handed grip. There are reasons to choose this thing, but I just feel like I'd rather just take, like, Samet over this thing. Like, yeah, you don't get the quick loader magazine, but I feel like it's just kind of better. Not gonna lie. So yeah, I don't know, this thing just doesn't feel very great, and I wanted to kind of explain that, because I think I need to make a case for this one, why it's so low, but yeah, that's my case. I know it's a little messy. I already talked about some of this in my unboxing, but yeah, this is just kind of, after some more testing, my overall thoughts on Welch Great G, and why I don't think it's very good, and why I just think it's a very, very awkward Bottleman to use. Number 10, Bottle Phoenix G. Bottle Phoenix G is a weird one. So you do have the Kokuruo feet, that's a nice stabilizer, cool. And power type core, nice, you get a metal cap in there, that's cool. And then there's the arms, which are, well, I mean, the cannon arms, I mean, they add more power and tension onto the hold parts. Also, they're a pretty good grip. It's a pretty decent Bottleman, it's a good power type for sure. But I just feel like it's not the best power type, which is kind of unfortunate. I know that DX isn't counted here, but I do think that, like, Colomar Energy DX is just better than this. I mean, like, the arms in Colomar Energy DX are better than these arms, for sure. That's kind of like this thing's whole identity, so I mean, why would I really want to use this over anything like that? And also, there's just other Bottlemen in this video with these same arms that just have more to them. That's why this thing's kind of low. I still think, like, relatively, maybe some of the things I put below this you could probably use over this because they have more unique stuff. Like, Welch Great G is very weird, but there's more going on with that to where I can almost recommend that over this. But I'm just kind of rating these based on, like, how good they are just compared to one another as is. And in that case, I would say it is better than Welch Great G. Just might not be worth using over it, if that makes any sense. Because there's other Bottlemen that I think are just directly better than this, which, actually, speaking of, number 9, Cobalt Bottle Fire G. So yeah, you don't have the stabilizers on the feet anymore, because these are the Draggart feet, which is kind of unfortunate, but at the same time, I guess you get the horn, so a little bit better of a sight. But yeah, you have these same power type hold parts and the same arms. Okay, it's the same idea. Also, you do get the weighted cap, which I personally actually prefer. Again, you get that little bit of extra tension, which I prefer to the metal cap, personally. And yeah, outside of that, it's kind of like the same idea. But you do have a barrel port and a magazine port. While I'm not counting these with a barrel and magazine, because, well, there's just something that does that better. We'll get to that. However, it has the options to use a barrel magazine. Phoenix can. I think that simply puts it above it. And the other things are debatable. Again, cap, the feet, the horn, you could debate about these things, but it's so close. I mean, it's kind of whatever at that point, but yeah. It's still a good power type, and yeah, you do have the magazine and barrel ports, which, again, I think just kind of directly invalidates Phoenix. At least I think so, so yeah. Just kind of better than Phoenix directly. Number 8, Bottle Soryu G. This is a weird one. I think Phoenix and Cobalt Bottle Fire G should be paired together. I think Cobalt should be one spot above Phoenix. And then this guy, you could argue, I think it being above both or below both. I put it above. So we got the stabilizers on the feet here, because they are Kokuruo feet, that's nice. These arms, I think, are a good grip, which is nice. You do have the, if I can get it out here, yeah, the weighted cap. I guess you could use this kind of as a sight, but it's not a good one. I guess like the dragon you could use as a sight. I don't know. Anyway. You also have the power type hold parts. That's pretty cool. And you have a barrel. So yeah, you do... I just knocked that off. Okay. You do have a barrel, which is pretty nice. Is it better than the power type arms? That is what I am unsure of. Personally, I feel like due to the absolute lack of control types, like real control types in God Cap, I mean, Deku Tiger technically is, but like, let's be honest, that's all in the cap. The Bottleman itself is basically just a power type. But anyway, can't get this part out. There we go. Okay, anyway. So, it's like the closest thing we really have to a control type, in my opinion. Like a proper control type, because again, Sphinx, that cap is just no. And then the vertical cap on Deck V Tiger is a control thing, but again, the Bottleman itself, really not. While this does use power type hold parts, I feel like the barrel here and the just general stability you can get from the feet and also having a grip and again, technically kind of a sight, I feel like it becomes the best control type in a sense. And I feel like it's also not directly invalidated by Kokoribo. I mean, kind of. It kind of is. But, like... Actually, no, what am I saying? It is directly invalidated by Kokoribo. But I feel like it's less of a big deal, in my opinion, than the other two. Which might be a hot take. I don't know. It's, like, very close. And again, saying it's, like, not as invalidated by Kokoribo is, like, such a slight thing. And it's also, like, compared to Phoenix and Cobalt, it's, like... The difference between them, just in general, I think is I feel like it's just very slight with what you want out of them. So it's like, what's really better? I don't know. Again, these three are very, very close. I just personally, again, I feel like technically you get a control type out of this, which is more interesting than the power types. You can debate either way. I wouldn't disagree with you, but for me, this one is up here. It's again, it's very slight. These guys almost are just a tie, but I had to pick, and I just picked him for 8th, and it was very narrow. I'll be honest. Number 7, Deck V Tiger G. This thing is weird. So the vertical shooter has the whole power gimmick where you kind of push down the head to add more power onto this. I don't like that gimmick though. I always feel like it's gonna break, but I don't know. It just kind of exists. Outside of that, you do have the vertical cap, which is good for vertical shooters because it goes straight rather than kind of drifting off, so that's pretty nice. This is definitely a control type, but I do feel like it's kind of more of a power type than anything, but yeah. Still, it is a vertical shooter that shoots decently strong, and it actually does shoot pretty straight. I mean, it's actually kind of interesting. I find it to be pretty good. Yeah, I put it higher than some other ones, which you could debate about, but like... I feel like its gimmick is pretty interesting, and it does work well. Well, like the cap, not this push down thing. I don't like that very much, but it can work. You can get more power, I guess, but it just feels like it's gonna break every time. Yeah, it's decent, I feel. I do wish that it had a drive strip. I feel like that's where Sphinx would come in better, because then it adds more power. But, yeah, overall, just as is, I'd take this cap over that one any day. Yeah, it's just kind of a fine Bottleman. I think it's, like, again, it's pretty good, but... Yeah, I mean, again, this one, I would say also, comparing it to, like, the previous few, it's pretty close to where you want to put this. If you want to put this thing below Cobalt, Phoenix, and Soryu, again, I wouldn't disagree entirely. This one's pretty different, though. But, yeah, I just think overall it's a little bit more dynamic. And while I am comparing them to how good they are compared to each other, I feel like this one, while it just doesn't get entirely outclassed immediately, so that's kind of nice. I feel like that's at least some reason to put it higher above those. Because, again, I do feel like overall, I feel like performance-wise they're very close together. At least I think so. So, yeah. At the very least, this is like the last one that's like very debatable and contested, so... After this, we have some, at least more, like, solid placements, which is very helpful for me. Number 6, Samet's G. This should have been the perfect speed-type Bottleman. Has, you know, the rollers, you got the magazine, which you could put either way, so that way you can, you know, reload easier with one hand. You also have the one-handed grip. Also, it has its own caps, the light caps, which are meant to basically, well, be faster. It sounds... perfect for a speed type. 2 problems. The biggest problem is that God Cap sucks, and I've gone the whole video without mentioning quality control, but yes, the quality control in God Cap is abysmal. However, they're all abysmal, which is nice, because that means it's easier for me to rate these things, since they're all equally, like, problematic, I feel. However, I feel like the rollers are kind of particularly affected by this. So I didn't mention this with Welch rate, because I mean it's pretty low and like already scraping, like just barely scraping into 11th, but anyway, I feel like So there's like definitely extra crunch on these shots when you fire, which is not good. But I feel like the rollers are especially bad. It's not that they're generally worse than the others, but it's because rollers are supposed to get shots out faster. Because of this, they really just don't, and that's kind of unfortunate. So I feel like with using roller hold parts, I just feel like they're generally kind of bad, which sucks. But also with Samets, it has this other issue. Light caps, they flex in very easily, well, compared to other caps, because there just isn't a top here. So I feel like these shots are very weak. And because, well, that'd be fine. I feel like having weaker shots for less tension, I mean, that makes sense, but that'd work for a speed type if the shots weren't so crunchy and didn't have so much resistance when trying to shoot that doesn't add any real power. Quality control in God Cap is an absolute travesty. But because of that, I feel like the light caps just they just genuinely don't work because again, you're not getting shots out any faster, and the power is like way worse, and it's just like, why would I want to use these? Outside of that, Samet still does technically work because again, you do have the one-handed grip and you can reload with one hand, so it is still like good. I put it at 6th for a reason. But I do feel like, yeah, it is a little bit unfortunate and probably should have been better than it is. But again, God Cap is just God Cap. Number 5, Bottle Wyvern G. This is like basically the same as Samet's G, except with two differences. One is the head is a little bit different. That doesn't really mean anything for, actually using it, but it is what it is. However, the biggest difference, the cap is a speed cap. This actually works more like a regular cap, which I like. It fires and doesn't have the weird power issue where it just feels weaker than it should. Yes, the roller hold parts still kind of suck here. However, it is what it is. The cap at least functions better in my opinion, so you just have a better Bottleman. You have a one-handed speed type Bottleman. You could, again, get to hold the Bottleman, shoot, reload with the other hand. It's just nice, Again, speed types, well, roller hold parts aren't my favorite here, but again, it works. I'll take it. It definitely gets to be a spot above Samet's because, again, the cap is just better, and that's like the only real difference if we're being honest here, so it is what it is. Number 4, Sprightening G. Yeah, this thing is funny. So basically it is, the CC Land DX armor, which is just kind of there. A multi-type core, and you get the Aquasports barrel, you get a long barrel as well, and I say Aquasports barrel, I meant Aquasports magazine. A long barrel, and you get a cap, it's just kind of a laser cap, which means it just is a normal cap. You use 3 caps, so that's pretty nice. Yeah, it has power type hold parts, so that's cool. You can kind of use tension on these parts as well a little bit to get some extra resistance, I guess. Slightly, maybe. At least I thought you could when I was testing it, but yeah. I mean, you can kind of tell there. It's like close enough to where you get maybe a little bit when it like spreads out, right? So anyway, yeah, you can have some, I guess, slightly more powerful shots. You got a long barrel, which might decrease power a little bit, but it's still pretty strong and, shoots straighter. I mean, a magazine, that's nice. I mean, the armor itself is just fine. You can shoot from back here again, go up here. But, yeah, it just has a barrel, a magazine, power type hold parts, just works. I think it just kind of gets up here because it's just kind of better than everything else. And also, having a magazine is never a bad thing. I would have put this below Samet's and Wyvern. But again, speed type hold parts are terrible. I feel like these power type ones are just better. And the thing with power types is like, it's not as fast, but again, because of how God Cap is, I feel like nothing is as fast as it should be with speed types. So I'd rather, if I'm taking a while to shoot anyway, I might as well just use these power type hold parts. Like, at least get more power out of it. If it's going to take a while, it might as well, right? So yeah, I find it just better overall. It just works. It's fine. It's not interesting, but it just... God Cap is just weird, and it just kind of gets 4th by proxy, I feel, which is unfortunate, but yeah, God Cap. Alright, number 3, Cola OG, that is too zoomed in. Okay. I feel like this is one that I have to explain, because I know some people are probably going to be like, this is too high, this thing is a gimmicky mess, while other people are going to be like, how is this not number one? So let me explain. Okay. First up, you have these legs, which are pretty cool. They shoot vertical caps out of them. That's nice. Also, you have the hand, which can shoot a small cap. That's cool. You can actually put a second one in this hand. That's nice. You get a pretty good grip here. And of course, the main core has big caps. Just uses these big cap rings, but still. And yeah, it has a built-in magazine. You get 3 shots out of that. So, might be saying, well, you get 3 big caps, which well, I did say big caps aren't the best. The fact that you kind of just get them in a core takes out the awkwardness. You get 3 of them. That is pretty nice, but I mean, I kind of think I might just prefer regular caps, honestly. But what's worse is, well, this thing shoots from very high up, which I don't really like. It's harder to hit shots that are lower. Well, targets that are lower. There is like the Kerpeps gimmick, where these kind of move up and like tilt it downward. But I feel like with that you have to judge your distance better, and I mean that's kind of fine, but it's also weird. I don't know. I feel like it just kind of works against itself a little bit, but it's still good. Like, don't get me wrong, it's still third. I mean, it's high up for a reason. Like, having 3 big caps that you can shoot and also reload normally, like, yeah, that's still really good. But there is some awkwardness to it, to why I don't want to put it higher up. Now, also, people might also say, well, what about the other things? You have the vertical caps, you 2 of them, the small cap. Well, here's the problem, is you have to constantly, you shoot these 3, and you have to switch triggers. You have to, shoot these 3, okay, move down here, shoot these, alright, move back up here, shoot, this, the wing fell off, wonderful. Anyway, I feel like you just have to shift parts too often for me to actually want to use this thing. Well, use it properly, I guess you could say. Like, I would much rather not bother with these or this. Maybe have a cap in there just for the sake of, having them as backups. Like, okay, I'm out of small caps, or not small caps, big caps. Alright, start firing these off, I guess. But generally, I just want to stick to this, which, while, yeah, that does work pretty well for you, it feels like I am still losing out on part of the gimmicks, which kind of sucks. And also, you have to use 3 different types of caps, at least 3. Big caps, small caps, and then, well, these are vertical caps. You can use other caps for them if you want, just regular sized ones, but, I mean, it's still at least 3 different kinds, because you need the small and big caps, so it just becomes an absolute awkward mess, in my opinion. So again, just stick to, like, the big caps, and then, like, use these as, like, extra shots when you need them. But yeah, outside of that, it just has so much awkwardness, in my opinion, to really warrant putting it any higher. I do still think it is really good, because, again, I mean, a big cap core, that's pretty good, in my opinion. But when you have all these other awkward things going on, like, yeah, no, I kind of just feel like it's, just not as good. There is the Draggart G, Big Rush version, I believe it's called. That one is from Random Collection Volume 4. I kind of almost prefer that to this, because that one, while you don't have all the extra stuff, it is a big cap core kind of just on the ground. And would I put that above the 2 things I have above this? Maybe honestly number 2. I could honestly see that being second place overall if I included it, but I didn't. But it'd be a debate between that and the actual number 2, but yeah. This thing I feel like is just too much of a mess for me to put it any higher. As cool as it is, yeah, it's just kind of a mess. Still good, but it could have been better. Like, imagine you had something to, like, tie the... Maybe you actually got a second one of these and you could, like, tie the triggers together or something. And then, like, have a shot with, like, all 5 caps flying out. That'd be crazy. That'd be really cool, actually. But that's not the case, so we can't do that. So this thing just kind of is going to be staying at number 3, and that's kind of all there is to it. Number 2... Bottle Koribo G. This is a weird one. So, I can understand people wanting to put this, like, directly next to Sprightening, because it's just, again, a magazine, power type old parts, so you could definitely argue that. However, Here's why I have it, not only above Sprightening, but also I put it even further above, above Cola OG as well. First up, extra stability. That is very nice. Also, you have a good grip. You have more control elements, I feel, which is very nice. This isn't really a good sight, but yeah, I mean, there's that, I guess. But yeah. Power type hold parts, that's good. Also, speed caps. I like speed caps quite a bit. They do shoot, I think, a little bit faster. Well, at least travel a little bit faster. That's nice. It's not like that crazy, but it's a little better, I guess. I mean, I'd probably take it over a laser cap, so anyway. But more importantly, the magazine capacity. So, with Sprightening G, you only get a 3 cap capacity, with an asterisk, because sometimes that third cap flies out because it's an Aqua Sports magazine. This gives you a solid 4 cap capacity, which is not only better than Sprightening, but also beats out Sametz and Wyvern, which I feel like is a pretty big deal, having 4 caps to shoot with just the one magazine. So I feel like I just value that a lot, and also just with the general, I think, in my opinion, much better armor set. I feel like it's actually a decent bit better than Sprightening. I will take the no barrel. And honestly, I think barrels, they do, take off of speed a little bit. But also, these things are just meant to shoot straight anyway, so I feel like, I'm going to be honest, I still just feel like barrels are a bit questionable in terms of their usefulness. Like, they make it a little bit more accurate, but they take off, like, a slight bit of power / speed. So it's like, I mean, it's not like, I'm not going to complain about using one. I mean, you can just take it off if you want. But if you take off the barrel from Sprightening, then this thing is, like, inherently better, no questions asked, right? So, yeah, I mean, I feel like barrels can make sense, I think, but, like, at the same time, I mean, this thing, I feel like, doesn't really need one, and, yeah, you get a 4 cap capacity out of it. You can use a barrel if you want anyway, so there's that. Yeah, this thing, it's just really good. Like, it's just a speed type with a 4 cap capacity. Well, not speed type. It's a Bottleman with a 4 cap capacity and power type hold parts, which I just think, again, with how God Cap is and, how roller hold parts are, yeah, this is just going to be better overall. And, yeah, it actually ends up, in my opinion, being a lot better than Sprightening. However, it's not number one because there's something that just directly invalidates this thing. The only reason I could understand using this thing over number one is because it does have a solid plastic core. Every multi-type core in this video I've showed so far, with the exception of Sprightening, was a solid plastic multi-type core, which is good. Well, not every core in the video, but every multi-type core in the video. Aside from Sprightening, yeah, it was a solid plastic core, which means it should break less. That's a pretty big deal, because number one does not have a solid core, which is unfortunate, but I guess that is a reason to potentially use this one, or at least customize using this as a base, or one of the other multi-type cores that, have solid plastic, but yeah. Regardless, I think that this thing is solid in its number 2 spot, at least in my opinion. Alright, number 1, Kokoryu G. Obviously, this thing is... It just is number 1, I think. It's hard to debate that, I would say. So, yeah, it has a power type core, has a magazine, has a barrel. It's the same magazine that was on Bottleman God Cap, so you have a 4 cap capacity, you have a barrel if you want to use it. It is a short barrel, so it's not as effective, but I guess it does, like, lose less speed. That's kind of nice. You can also just take it off as well, if you want. Just uses normal caps, so no speed caps, but again, it's not like that big of a difference anyway. I might prefer speed caps slightly, but still not going to complain too much about it. Same armor parts, so that is what it is. Yeah, this is a small cap shooter. You can shoot 3 small... There's like a control mode, but that mode is bad. And we keep it in speed mode with this guy up here. We don't talk about control mode. Yeah, the small caps, they're small, but they're actually somewhat effective. Only downside is that you have to kind of move around it and also have to shoot it separately, which does kind of suck. But at the same time, well, it's kind of like the Cola OG problem, I feel, where you have to move your hands around and it's a little bit awkward. But again, it can be used as sort of a last resort, which, in this case, I mean, it's not too bad. I mean, it's also not like Cola OG, where it's a giant Bottleman where you have to move your entire hands around. This one is just kind of like, move like up here real quick. It's not as bad, right? And unlike that, you get 3 shots out of this thing. It's not just a one-shot move your hand to another trigger. No, you get 3 whole shots, which is pretty nice. This part's just falling off. Damn. Alright, let me try and fix that. The wing was just not on correctly, I guess, but there we go. So anyway, yeah, this thing, I mean, it works. It does its job, I would say. It's not crazy good, but it just helps, you know, it's kind of an extra thing. And again, despite how small these caps are, I think they're deceptively good. Well, deceptively strong. Like, you'd think that they'd be very weak. Yeah, they're weaker, but they're not actually as weak as you would think, so that's helpful at least. But if you don't want to use these arms, or this thing, or whatever, you also have the cannon arms that come with the thing. So in that case, you have the magazine, the barrel, and these arms. And yeah, I mentioned earlier how, you know, Cobalt Bottle Fire G and Bottle Phoenix G were kind of directly outclassed. That's what I was talking about. Because you can basically make like the same thing as those, except you have a barrel and a magazine that come with the Bottleman with other arms you could swap off to make it into something else. This Bottleman just kind of has everything covered, which is why I put it at number 1, because I do think it is just kind of the best. Like, you just get everything. What else is there to say about this thing? Like, yeah, it's the best. The only downside, though, is that you have to be careful with these arms. I mentioned it multiple times. These arms, well, the core itself, it's translucent plastic, which makes it harder to customize because it has a higher breakage issue, but also the tabs, like the bumps on the tabs, are a little bit bigger than normal, which makes it easier for arms to get stuck on this thing. And these arms are actually made to be slightly smaller than normal, so you can imagine that just gets caught, and these arms can just break, and yeah. However, the cannon arms here, they're actually made to be bigger, so they slot on very easily. You don't have to worry about breaking the thing, but still. It's kind of just, you know, pick one and stick to it, I would say. Pick one of the other arms. Like, do you want to have this grip with you know, kind of a backup shot here? Well, I guess 3 backup shots. Or do you just not want to use that and instead just have extra power on your main shots? Regardless, you have a barrel that you could use, or I guess not use if you don't want to use barrels, which is fair. But then obviously you want the magazine. I don't know anyone who wouldn't want a magazine. And yeah, you get 4 shots, so Kokiri OG it's just the best Bottleman in God Cap, no question, I would say. Unfortunately, it does have the breakage problems. So again, if you do want to use something like this as a base, or you know, Soryuo, or even, you know, Cobalt Bottle Fire G, any of those 3 are, I would say, better cores to use than this. But if we're picking just, you know, again, one Bottleman to say it's the best out of the box, then this thing, it wins. And even then, I'd basically be just recommending to recreate Kokiri OG anyways, so it kind of doesn't really matter as much to whether or not you're recreating it or using it out of the box. It's still the best, regardless of quality control problems. But I mean, luckily those aren't impeding my ranking because it doesn't directly affect performance. It just affects whether or not you break it. And also, be careful about using too much power on these arms as well. They can shatter from shooting if you're not careful enough with them. So that is a downside that you could argue is affecting performance. But again, I could just say, well, I'll put these arms on, and it's the best Bottleman anyway, so who cares? So yeah, this is the best Bottleman for sure, and it just has everything you want. That kind of is why it's the best, and I don't think there's really much of an argument against why this thing wouldn't be the best. Alright, so there you have it, my Bottleman God Cap ranking video. This was a very weird video to do, because again, I wanted to do more than just the base 5, but like the remakes are just kind of recolor, so it's like, well, how do I even want to rank these, you know? It was a very awkward video to make. A lot of things were very close together as well. Like, there's a few Bottlemen that were just like kind of just in a cluster, and I'm like, how do I even rank these? So it took me a while to figure it out. That's why this video is coming out a bit later than I thought. I was actually planning on doing this in like, I thought about maybe doing it in like late February, or like the first video I do in March. I think it's coming out like the 6th or 8th or something. Like, it's kind of late, so yeah. It is what it is. I figured it out, and I made a ranking video, and yeah, it's still, there are some, you know, placements that I could, again, see arguments to mix them around. The main takeaway, though, is that Kokiri is just kind of the best Bottleman, and Cola OG, while being really good, is a little bit too awkward to say is better. I know some people might think it is, you know, the best, because it's like the craziest, but I don't necessarily agree with that. And I think most people wouldn't agree with that, but maybe, you know, if someone's like more casually into Bottleman and doesn't pay attention as much, which is fair, they might, you know, think it's like the best, but I don't really think that's the case. This guy is number one, and yeah. So that does conclude my whole Bottleman ranking video series, kind of. I did the, you know, the prototype line almost 2 years ago at this point. I did the DX line last year, I did the God Cap line now, and it doesn't seem like we're getting a fourth line, so that's it. Yeah. Now, I will be doing a ranking video on the entirety of Bottleman, where I rank every single Bottleman. However, that's not going to be a kind of quote-unquote competitive list. That will just be based on what I like the best, and that will be probably more fun for me to make, but also be very long. But anyway, that's that. That is the God Cap ranking video. Maybe I will do a comparison to DX at some point as a discussion, rather than a ranking, like what, you know, what's the best between the two. That could be a fun discussion for the future, because again, I have a lot of God Cap stuff to talk about within the next few months, but once that's done, I mean, I don't have as much Bottleman stuff to do anymore, so I do want to keep Bottleman alive on my channel via discussions, but they won't be as common, so that video might be a while, but I will probably do the full ranking video for all of Bottleman. That'll probably be within the next few months, so yeah. Anyways, though, that's all for this video. It's already long enough. I should probably shut up now, so yeah. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye.